But as the story goes, Red Hot Chili Peppers come to his door. It's a Sunday. Dave Lund does not do tattoos on Sundays, and Aaron is a huge fan. It's probably like blood sugar, sex magic days. And Aaron's like looking out his window as his dad is cussing out the Red Hot Chili Peppers on the lawn.
Good morning, fellow writers, and welcome to the Morning Edit. I'm James, an author, editor, and the owner of The Arcanist, an independent publisher dedicated to excellent fantasy fiction. This is the show where you and I sit down with a cup of coffee and discuss all things fantasy publishing, especially from the perspective of the independent author. It's Wednesday, August 13th, 2025, and joining our talk today is C.D. Jensen, a tenured professor and author of The Crown and the Caged God. He has book 2 coming out very soon, and I had the pleasure last week to talk with him for several hours. Today, we are discussing the importance of artistic communities and how that is fruitful for the creative life. Before we begin, remember that I'm on Substack, where I teach writers like you how to write authentic fantasy, and where podcast episodes like this one come out early. Alright, without further delay, let's get into the talk. You always talk about how your stuff isn't marketable. What has solidified my interest in your work is our personal connection, our pen paling. And I got really interested in what you were doing after I realized you lived in Stockton, because I'm like, nobody lives in Stockton that does anything of interest.
Nobody lives in Stockton that survives to adulthood or whatever.
Yeah. Oh man, I got stories. What drew me? So I think your first video that I saw that came into my feed was like about bookstores. And
yeah.
Thinking about the role of bookstores and why that's important, and I saw your video, and then I checked out your website, and what really connected with me and I would probably position myself as your target audience, because I really value the grassroots approach to art where I have done this all myself. And if I could put you up on a pedestal a little bit, you are the exemplary example of that.
Thank you.
Of the person that I am going to do it. It is my product, to the point where all the art that in songs in the book exist in real life. Like, that is dedication, and I'm very drawn to that. So before we ever started a dialogue, I was stalking your stuff as a fan. Like, this guy does really cool things. Like, even your website has like hand-drawn graphics on it.
Yeah.
So that... Sure, on paper, you haven't dressed that up to be mass market appeal, but you have dressed it up to appeal to a very specific person who's going to love what you are doing.
I think you're spot on. If I can accept the compliments as stated, and now maybe some people watch like, no, I disagree. Okay, fine. I'm going to accept the compliments as stated and feel good about my day. But yeah, doing it myself is so important. Now, there are some collaborators, and I'll talk about that in just a second, but I working within my own community. So,
yes.
The songs. So on the first book, I did all the art myself. There's a little bit, as you know, there's a little bit of internal art, and then the front and back cover, those are my paintings. Those paintings are actually in Oregon right now. They're framed, but they're at my parents' house. But all the other paintings are right here with me for the second book. But a friend of mine since the 5th grade, Aaron Lum, he lives in Japan now. When I moved out to Connecticut, I was 29 at the time, and he moved out to Japan around the same time. He's been there ever since. I've obviously left Connecticut in the intervening years, but we've been doing art projects together since like elementary school, and visual. And we had a band together. We played. He's a phenomenal musician, and his dad was like a famous tattoo artist. Where the story is that Anthony Kiedis, a couple of guys from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, came to his door on a Sunday. The tattoo part. At this point, Aaron was living in Texas before he came out to Oregon, but he just lives in this tattoo parlor, and his dad was, I've been in the house, a number of times, and I've seen the tattoo. He's phenomenal. So there's obviously a genetic gift that was sort of passed down from the paternal lineage to Aaron Lum. I think Dave Lum, if anyone wants to look up the tattoo artist, but as the story goes, Red Hot Chili Peppers come to his door. It's a Sunday. Dave Lum does not do tattoos on Sundays, and Aaron is a huge fan. It's probably like blood sugar, sex magic days. And Aaron's like looking out his window as his dad is cussing out the Red Hot Chili Peppers on the lawn. But he was this sort of famous tattoo artist, and but Aaron has grown apart from his family pretty divisively, and I don't know. I'm not on the inside, but But he's been living in Japan, doesn't really come back to the U.S. at all. But Aaron and I continue, while he was in the U.S., we would do art projects together where we're working on the same canvas. Now we sort of send stuff back and forth. It's the same stuff with music, if we're doing this together. But Aaron Lum has just as much heart as I do in terms of the art of it. It has to be 100% human. There cannot be AI involved in any way. And it's just, it has to be all heart. And actually, on the day of release of the book, we're going to put out another song. It's a sea shanty. I don't want to say any more about it, but it's referenced. This song is referenced in the book, and so we'll actually put that one out. We have a bunch more songs that are sort of half done, enough to know how to write about them. But we'll put out another complete one in a month or so. But in the second book, there's internal art and cover art, and so this is, I don't know if you can see it, but this is the artwork that he designed the cover. I did the painting of the cover. So the painting of the cover is this one. If I can get it in there. So that's my watercolor, painting of the cover. But I do all the art in separate stages. So this is actually the title of the book. That if you see on the cover, the actual real cover, I just had to Photoshop in the title. The first book, the title is in the tree. Right, the crown and the caged god is written in the tree, and this one is written in the sky. But I had to combine those two because I was afraid I'd kind of mess it up. The back art, that's Bonston's thumb. I was looking at my own thumb as I was painting it, kind of flipping the coin. On the back of the first book, you'll see Bonston setting a coin on his thumb. On his left hand thumb, you'll see him setting a coin. In this one, he's flipping the coin. The tree, there's a little mini tree on top of the barcode and on the back of the first book. Here's the tree that has dropped its acorn for the back of the second book. Here's the acorn that's on the ground. The acorn was connected to the tree in the first book. And then in the first book on the cover, there was a sliver of a moon. The moon is now half full in the second book. So I've done all these paintings independently. And the back of the book, you can see there's if I can get so there's the tree that has now dropped its acorn. The acorn, is down here now. The moon that is now half full, and then Bonston flipping the coin. And so there's progress. This is book 1, part 2. There's a continuation of the visual themes that persist in the book. So, but the cover, I was writing back and forth with Aaron, saying, man, I am having a hard time designing this. And Aaron has his father's genes, at least for art. I think they have a very different worldview. In art, he inherited his father's genes. He can just sit down, looking at nothing. And, for me, as I'm doing the coin flip, I got to look at my thumb. I can't just out of my head come up with this. I can do that with the moon, because that's just like a blue side and a yellow side. A lot of this stuff I can just do, or like trees. I can just do trees out of my head, the acorn out of my head. But like a person, I can't just do, I have to. And so I get in touch with Aaron, hey, will you design the cover? Here's what I need it to be. And he just sits down, sketches it out, and sends it to me. But there's one more piece of internal art where hey, there's these 5 characters. The first book begins with that newspaper article. The second book also begins with a newspaper article. It's parallelism, right? The structure of these is the same going through. Second one begins with a newspaper article. And the first one, there was I don't want to reveal anything, but in the first book, you can see the newspaper article on the preview on Amazon. The newspaper article will come up. But that's the creature that dwells in thorn. I don't want to reveal any more about that. In the second book, there's 5 different characters that are in the newspaper article. I'm like, Lum, I need some help designing. And he's already sent me the artwork. I still have to edit this in. So the newspaper article in this version of the book is incomplete. I need to add the art to it. But working with people, so the sea shanty that's going to come soon, the lyrics are me, and we went back and forth on the ideas of how it goes. But he came up with all the music for this one. Those first couple of songs, Sunbird's Return and Wrath, those ones, there's videos of it. You can see my version where I just do a Zoom recording of me sitting there, and I do a sonar recording, and I send those to Aaron, and I say, will you come up with a version that's better than mine? And he does. And so there's a collaboration that's so important to me to keep it within a community. You saw that video where Grant Leitner, so Lum and I have been friends since the 5th grade. Grant and I have been friends since the 7th grade. I mean, he was the best man at my wedding, and so he's the one I want to do the narration, and we're still in the early stages. So it's not like the audiobook is coming around next week or something. We're in the early stages of this. There's a video of the map of the world online. And it's me reading a passage from book 2, not book 1, part 2, but actual book 2, and showing the map as it goes through. The person I had edit that together, I recorded it, and Aaron Lum actually painted that map. We went back and forth for like a year about here's what the placement of this. And I was sending him my sketches, and he did the final painting of that one. But the person who I had edit those together, we've been friends since the 8th grade, and he was the photographer at my wedding. Jeremiah is his name. But working within a community, that doesn't mean the community has to be antique relationships. You're in my community now, and this is recent, for people who don't know, we've exchanged a ton of emails. And so, if a video is coming out, we talk about it in advance. Your D&D one, I think you were talking to me about it like well before it came out. And so you were in my community, and we don't have an antique relationship, although there's some geographical connections where I now live, where you were born and raised. You live somewhere approximate to where I lived in Zionsville and Franklin, Indiana. So I don't know how close that is to you.
About an hour.
And I lived in Chicago for a while. So all right in that area. And so I have some experience where you have a lot of experience, where I am, but we didn't meet in passing or in like childhood or something like that. So communities, what I think they are is like a partnership of support. It's people who support each other. It doesn't have to be necessarily the same pursuits. This would be, but people with a mutual interest who show support, something like that, I would say is community. And so you're in that community now. And so, if there's ever like future collaborations where we work together, you are now within the circle of trust. But what I wouldn't want is to work with a stranger. I wouldn't want to send my book and say, I want a cover to be done by this person and I don't know them, because then I don't trust that they're not just going to do like a ChatGPT, like spit out something that doesn't have heart. It needs to have heart. And so I work with people I know and trust who are in my community. And then, I do the final work myself with the art, and the writing is just 100% me. I'm not willing to really let people. So, my wife is my beta reader. My mom is my editor, and she's phenomenal. I feel like my mom missed her calling. So, my mom and dad, I'm in the heart of the middle class. I would say just the middle of the middle class is where, but my mom became a nurse when I was like tiny. And she had a landscaping, business, and as she did on the side, she ended up, as all nurses, the only inclusion criterion to become like a hospital administrator of some sort, work on the business side of it, you have to have a nursing degree. And so I know other people who had, PhDs and stuff who were unable to get into hospital administration, but my mom ended up transitioning out of nursing into that at some point later in life. And my dad was a truck driver when I was little, and he eventually became a machinist. I would say I'm just right in the middle of the middle class. But I feel like my mom missed her calling by becoming like a nurse, and because she's so good at editing. Yeah. And so I'll send, my mom has a copy of this, as well. And so Marie and she reads it out loud. She's my beta reader as far as like pacing and some that kind of commentary. And then my mom is my editor, but it's in the family. It's literally in the family. Yeah. Is where this resides. And I just don't, again, in the future, like you're in my community. And so I would work with you on things, but I don't trust strangers. I may admire strangers, like strangers, look up to strangers. I can be a fan of like Patrick Rothfuss as a writer. I'm a fan of his work, but I don't know him. I can invite people into my community and sync up those ethics. Yeah. And trust. And that doesn't contradict my necessity to have it be 100% human and really grassroots, as you put it. Even the website, I learned to code. I'm bad at it because I haven't developed my skill. But I just like self-taught myself, I don't know, in middle school or something like that. I used to program video games, bad video games, sort of like point and click adventure games and stuff, inspired by like Sierra Online, King's Quest kinds of things. I would do bad versions of like King's Quest that I was programming. And I make my websites myself. I don't even use like ChatGPT to do like I'm sure I could make my site way better by hiring strangers or using ChatGPT or something. But I just don't want to do it. I want it all to be me, and supported by a supportive community.
If you found this video helpful or enjoyable, give it a like and a subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Remember to check out The Arcanist. Our complete 2025 selection of magazines are available now. Magazine subscribers get both issues and access to our complete online archive. This is the best way to support what I do. If magazines aren't your thing, I'm also on Substack, where I publish free written articles to companion with these types of videos, and paid members get early access to videos, my podcast, and exclusive content that will be available at some point. Until next time, keep writing, keep revising, and keep waking up early.